Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something pretty huge. A potential golden ticket for any Australian who's ever dreamed of packing up and moving to Europe. And I'm not just talking about a long holiday. This is all tied up in a massive trade deal that's been cooking for years and has just been kicked into high gear.
You know, who doesn't love a good European holiday, right? But what if you could swap that 2-week vacation for, say, a 2-year stay, maybe even longer, and get this, without all the usual red tape and paperwork headaches? Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what's being talked about right now.
And look, this isn't just some rumor floating around the internet. Nope. Sources who are actually in the know, close to these talks, are saying the EU has put a very real offer on the table to make it way easier for Aussies to live and work anywhere in the bloc.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty, because this is where it gets really good. We're talking about the chance to live and work in the EU for up to 4 years. And here's the kicker. You wouldn't even need a job lined up before you pack your bags. They're even talking about potential paths to stay longer term. Oh, and it's a two-way street. Europeans would get the same deal here, which could actually be a big help for some of our own job shortages.
So, you've got to be asking, right? Why is the EU being so generous all of a sudden? Well, here's the catch. This amazing offer, it isn't just a new visa program out of the blue. It's what you'd call a sweetener. It's a clever little tactic to get a much bigger deal finally signed, sealed, and delivered.
And that bigger deal is a massive free trade agreement, an FTA. This thing has been bogged down in negotiations for what feels like forever. We're not just talking about travel here, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars in trade on the line.
So, to really get why this visa offer is such a big deal now, we've got to jump in the time machine and go back a bit. We need to understand why this whole thing collapsed in the first place.
And man, it has been a long and bumpy ride. I mean, after years of back and forth, they were so close to a deal in early 2023. It felt like it was right there. But then, bam, it all came crashing down when Australia's trade minister literally walked out of a meeting in Japan.
So what happened? Well, the whole argument really boiled down to two things. First, names. The EU is really protective of its geographical indicators. Think Prosecco, feta cheese. They didn't want Aussie producers using those names. On the flip side, Australia wanted way more access for its farm exports, things like beef and sugar, into the European market. And that's something the EU just wasn't willing to budge on.
And this quote right here from the opposition really sums it up. The political pressure back home in Australia was immense. If the government looked like it was selling out Aussie farmers, well, that would be a political disaster. It's just not something they could do.
Okay, so the talks collapsed spectacularly. Why on earth is this deal suddenly back from the dead? And not just back, but being called a top priority. What gives?
Well, a couple of big things happened on the world stage that totally changed the game. You had Donald Trump's tariff policies, which suddenly made stable trade deals look really appealing to everyone. Then, the EU finally wrapped up a huge 25-year-long negotiation with the South American bloc. That freed them up. And all of a sudden, the word out of Brussels was that the Australia deal was now their #1 focus.
And here's the real reason why. For Europe, this isn't just about cheese and wine anymore. Not at all. This is now about strategic security. They're desperate to rely less on China for what they call critical minerals, the stuff that powers our modern tech. And who do they see as a safe, reliable partner to get them from? Yep, Australia. A free trade deal will get rid of tariffs on those minerals and unlock huge European investment in Australian mining.
Which brings us right back to today. A deal feels closer than it has ever been. But, and this is a big but, those original problems, the ones about Prosecco and beef, they haven't just vanished into thin air. You can really feel the optimism in the air, politically speaking. I mean, some people are saying this thing could be wrapped up within the next month or so. The momentum is definitely there.
But this right here perfectly captures the tension. You've got all this high-level political optimism. Both sides really want to get it done. But then you have Australia's farmers, and they are, let's just say, very nervous.
And their concerns? It's like we're hearing an echo from the past. It's the exact same stuff. Getting a fair go for their beef and sugar, and the whole issue over product names like Prosecco. But underneath it all is this really deep fear that they're just going to be sacrificed to get the deal across the line.
And this quote just hammers that point home. It really shows you that deep anxiety. While the politicians are all smiles and pushing ahead, the very people who could be most affected are biting their nails, worried their livelihoods are about to be traded away.
So it all comes down to this one massive question. With the EU now so hungry for our minerals, And with this amazing travel offer on the table, is compromising on farming now seen as a price worth paying? Is it the thing that finally gets this historic deal done?
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. What looks like a dream deal for Aussie travelers, could it turn into a nightmare for Aussie farmers? As this whole thing speeds towards the finish line, can you really balance this incredible opportunity for people against the future of a massive, vital industry? That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?